Welcome to the Justice for You podcast, brought to you by Waggener High BSU, where students of color acknowledge and discuss African American struggles with African American fighters. In this episode, Waggener BSU's Andrew and David sit down with Shay Johnson to talk about African American trauma.
So I'm Andrew. Nice to meet you, Miss Shay.
Hello, Andrew.
What do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? Know. So my job is I am a trauma-informed educator. So that means I go to about 150 something schools. Yes, I attempt to in our district and inform educators, principals and assistant principals and cafeteria workers and bus drivers that our students are coming in our schools with behaviors that we don't like, but I try to inform them that there is something behind the behavior, and it's usually something dealing with trauma, some type of traumatic event.
What do you think is the most common trauma amongst the Black community, or just like in general?
And the most common trauma, I would say poverty. Poverty packs a very heavy backpack, and in the trauma world we call it the invisible backpack, because every single one of us have an invisible backpack. But because of our history, a lot of Black families are still fighting this thing called poverty. And with poverty comes depression. With poverty comes I can't pay my bills, I can't feed my kids. With poverty comes sometimes parents being alcoholics. It comes with parents not having jobs to support our families. So I think the hardest thing that we look at when we deal with the African American family is that thing called poverty that we've been trying to get out of, but there's so many roadblocks in the way.
And do you think that the main cause of poverty in the Black community comes from like generational curses?
Absolutely. I think it's generational. I'm sure you know some of our history. We've not been taught a lot of our history, but we keep digging. We've come from basically nothing in America. We've come from nothing, and we've had to work our tails off to get where we are. And in this system here was not set up for us to succeed. And I'm talking about the housing system, the banking system, the educational system. It was not set up for us to succeed. So with all those roadblocks being in the way, we have a lot of work to do.
And I know like a lot of the times like people in the Black community don't really like expressing themselves, like their emotions, like showing them, because I know like a lot of the times sometimes I don't even like showing my emotions.
Yes.
But I know like it's important for people to like get that stuff out. So like what would you say to like people that just don't know how to express their emotions or don't get them out enough to where it just builds up, and then that's when you have like a lot of the angry Black people stereotypes and stuff.
The angry Black woman. Yes. So I would say I think it goes back to whatever goes on in this house is going to stay in this house. So that means if uncle was messing with you in an inappropriate way, it's going to stay in this house. If our lights are off for a whole week, it's going to stay in this house. If mom didn't come home for 2 weeks, it's going to stay in this house. And we're doing better. We're coming out of it. We're introducing therapy, and we're going to see counselors and therapists. But all those feelings that's being kept inside, they're going to come out somehow. And a lot of times it comes out on the wrong person. It might be the teacher. It may be your parents. It may be a friend. And that turns into something that we don't like to see. But with our Black families, what we've been dealing with, we've not put a name on until recently, it's chronic stress and it's chronic trauma, which means it's happening all of the time, almost every single day. And so when you are affected by if you are affected by stress all the time, if you are affected by traumas all the time in your neighborhood, like neighborhood violence, like poverty, like we said, it will affect your body, your physical body. Right? There comes the headaches, the stomach aches. There comes the strokes at 35 years old. It attacks your physical body, even in the school. So when you're sitting down trying to learn a lesson and trying to retain information, if you're with that chronic stress or chronic trauma, you're not going to be able to retain it.
And Why do you think like a lot of people in the Black community find it quote unquote embarrassing to like process their feelings or like not act a certain way in front of like the code switching or whatever like people call it, but like people in the Black community act so different? I guess it's because like stereotypes or something, but like a lot of the times people just don't want to be themselves around.
I think it's an unwritten rule that you have to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I see grown men. My husband is a barber, and I see grown men, you know, telling their sons in the barbershop, "Don't cry.
Mm-hmm.
You a man. Be a man." Our education system, we have not done a good job teaching our students about their feelings and what feelings are, and that all feelings are valid. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be anxious. It's what you do with those feelings. And we have not taught that in the school system, and we have not taught that at home. So sometimes when those feelings come up, they're so overwhelming, we don't know what to do with them. So the most easiest feeling to go to when we get overwhelmed is anger. Mm-hmm. And we see a lot of angry. And now it's actually turning into rage, what we're seeing in our school system now. A lot of kids are enraged when those feelings come in. They don't know what to do to them. So that's when you see the fights, and that's when you see weapons being brought into our school building. And it does derive from trauma. It does. And it's an event that poses that's what trauma is, an event or experience that poses a real or perceived threat to your brain. And when a threat comes to your brain, you have three options, only three: fight, flight, freeze. And so when that threat comes to our bodies in the school system, we see students leaving out of the classroom, right? That's flee. We see a lot of different fights and weapons. That's fight. And we see students just not doing or saying anything. And that's the freeze condition. So we have to work with students to show them that they're coping, but we have to show them healthy ways to cope with those feelings.
Why do you think that it's not prioritized like in school to help students process their emotions? Like, do you think it's just because like it just slipped, or do you think it's a deeper meaning?
It's
or
never
reason?
been a priority. It's never been a priority because we have these things called tests that, you know, we have to get our numbers up. So schools look good with really good numbers, but when you really take a look inside the schools, what do you have? And there's layers upon layers upon layers of problems and issues that our school system have. So we are trying. It's a new day. You know, I'm hopeful that we can start beginning to teach our kids, number one, healthy ways to cope. Number two, for our teachers to bring back that word forgiveness, right? Give our students 2 and 3 and 4 different chances, because we all mess up. We all say things that we should not say, but we need kindness. We need compassion. And so when we bring all those things into the classroom, the academics, it's always going to be there, and it will be stronger. But first we have to hear the voices of our students, because everybody, again, is carrying that invisible backpack. So, I think when we bring compassion in and a little forgiveness and listen to our students, the academics, we'll see the numbers.
And like nowadays, like there's like more like clubs and like stuff like Black students can do inside of school to like kind of like bring like process their emotions or like speak up about it. Like for one, like Black Student Union, which is the group that I'm a part of, we try to like really focus on like keeping Black joy and talking about and processing those feelings. That's why I'm here right now. Do you think like it is very like important like for those clubs to like remain inside of schools and stuff?
It's definitely important for the clubs to remain, because students need, and adults, we need a sense of belonging. And inside of our schools, a lot of our students are saying, I don't feel heard and I do not feel seen. So thank goodness for clubs like Black Student Union. Black Student Union is for you to come in and voice your thoughts and voice your opinions and learn history, right, about African American. And so often Black student unions go towards feelings and how are you feeling today and how does that make you feel. It's all tied in because we share very similar experiences. And when we do that, there goes that sense of belonging. And so when you have that sense of belonging in school, again, that relationship will form and we will see those academic numbers.
And what do you say to like the students that don't want to join clubs because they feel like it's embarrassing or it's nerdy or it's not for them, just because like stereotypes always sell like black students or black boys that they should play sports instead of doing clubs or just stuff like that? Like, what do you say to them to make them realize that it's important to like be a part of stuff like that?
If you've ever went to a really good restaurant and they have a burger that makes your mouth water even before you taste it, or the fries are just so dope and so salty and just so fresh before you put, then you go and you tell your friends about it. Bruh, you have to go to this restaurant. I mean, the service is amazing. The food is off the chain. It feels you have to go and you have to share the testimonies of how your experiences were in that club and how you were able to be yourself and how much you learned, and just go out and spread the word. It has to be more than one now. Go out and spread the word about how wonderful this club is and how much you feel like you belong. It's like a family, and there's nothing more joyful than having a family.
And I honestly can't think of any more questions that I want to ask, but is there anything like you would just tell people out there? Like,
I do. I want to say this too, especially to our students. There's a such thing as an upstairs brain and a downstairs brain. And when our brains are in some type of traumatic thought or experience or something that you are remembering that has happened to you that has been traumatic, we are working in our downstairs brain, and the behaviors come with that. Teachers need to understand that we're not going to be able to retain information, the students, and whatever we are teaching, they're not going to be able to remember and process it until we get our students to think while they're in their upstairs brain. And the only way we can get to our upstairs brain is if we have students that are calm, if we have students that are trusting us, if we have students that come in the classroom and you say, good morning, how was your day? That things like that calms the brain. So until our students come in knowing how to cope in a healthy way with a calm brain, learning is not going to take place.
My name is David, and I'm in 9th grade. Today, I would like to I would like to ask why black parents, think it's okay for them to abuse their children, physically, emotionally, and mentally.
Oh, okay, David. That's a very, very heavy question. Thank you for asking that. Number one, parents of all races abuse their kids in all those ways that you just mentioned. All races. Number two, there are so many reasons for abuse. None of them are good reasons. One reason I know of, have you ever heard that hurt people really do hurt people?
Yeah.
And if I'm having a really bad day or bad morning and I'm a teacher, I may come into the classroom and say, everybody sit down. Don't say a word. I don't want to hear it. Right? That may happen, and that could hurt someone's feelings, right? Mm-hmm. And that's only because I'm having a bad day, and so I am letting out my emotions on who's in front of me. Sometimes parents abuse kids because they were abused, which is a horrible thing. That's a cycle. That's called a cycle, and that's a cycle that needs to stop. So if my mom smacked me around, if my mom cursed me out, if my mom threw me to the ground, sometimes it rolls on to the next generation, and that's an awful thing. And that's where therapy needs to come into play, and someone needs to talk to them and say, listen, this can continue after this family. This can continue with your family. So that's when we need to start putting resources and people that care about you in place to say, wait, stop, this is not the right thing to do. Sometimes people abuse others because maybe drugs and alcohol. And when you're on drugs and alcohol, your brain is just not right, right? And it makes you do some things that you wouldn't normally do. So the abuse thing, there's so many different layers to it. But one thing that is common, it's a traumatic event. So someone who is abused mentally, sexually, physical, that's a traumatic event that will stick with you for a very long time until you get help. And even when you get help, it'll creep back up. It's called triggers. It'll keep back up, it'll creep back up. But the key point is making sure that we address it. Don't let it sit there, because it's going to eventually come out. It's going to come out. So we need to get help for all of those abuses. Poverty sometimes makes us so upset, right? That we need to lash out on something or someone, and the person that's in the household, that's the closest one I can lash out on. If I'm so upset that my lights are off, if I'm so upset that my boyfriend stayed out all night, or the husband, or the girlfriend stayed out all night, may get upset because there's nothing in the refrigerator, and the closest emotion to go to is anger. And then with anger sometimes comes physical anger, and then sometimes comes those words that hurt. You remember when people used to say, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words may never. That is a lie. Words hurt. Words are powerful. So we just need to teach our parents and our caregivers and our teachers and all adults that words have power. When you call somebody, are you emotionally abuse them, there is something that's called repair. That's good news. There's something that's called repair, that I can come back and say, what I said was wrong. There's no excuse for it. I was upset. I said it, but I care about you. I love you. And I don't ever want to use those words again. Right there. That was powerful. Right. Yeah. So we can get out of that. But there's so many different layers to why parents, caregivers, adults abuse kids.
Another question I would like to ask is that why are black males usually treated like, you said man up? Why is that term used a lot in a lot of families?
Yeah. So there's a lot of terms, like you just said, man up. Boys don't cry. Men's don't cry. You need to grow up. We hear that all the time in our black families. And that's historic. That is, we've had, I would say, the weight of the world on our shoulders. And so sometimes, historically, we were not able to be a young child running around on the playground, right? We were very little picking cotton, building houses, doing things that we should not have been doing. Older people should have been doing. We were not even able to go to school and learn at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, because we had to do grown-up things. So that is historical. And what we're teaching our boys now, it's in the process, is that it's okay to cry. It's okay to hug. It's okay to love. And we're working towards, we're not all the way there yet, but I'm going to tell you today that all of your feelings are valid. If you're sad and a tear comes out, that's okay. If you get upset and your voice raises a little bit, that's okay. It's what you do with that feeling. So we are in progress. When you say a work in progress, we are a work in progress with our young boys, telling them it's okay to be a boy. It's okay to run around, right? It's okay to play in the sand. So that's historic, but we still have work to do.
Thank you very much for speaking.
You're so welcome. Yeah. You're so welcome.
This has been the Justice for You podcast. We want to thank all the interviewers, all the interviewees, and all the people who support the work of the podcast.